is the winner of the 2007 Fresh Fruit Festival Award of Distinction for Stand-Up Comedy, although she has never before or since been called distinguished. She has performed nationwide at LGBT pride events, colleges, and even the occasional livestock auction. Both her comedy CDs, I Am Not a 12-Year-Old Boy and Almost Pretty, are on regular rotation on Sirius Satellite Radio's mainstream comedy station, and she has appeared on Showtime and the Discovery Network. She is the co-founder and co-producer of Queer Memoir, the popular New York City-based storytelling event, and the author of 4 books, including 2 health books for preteens, which were, strangely enough, selected to be used by the Sonlight Christian School's homeschooling curriculum as part of their science and wellness program. Please welcome, be prepared to laugh with Kelli Dunham.
So I also feel like it's my birthday, although it is not. It's my birthday. I was actually, as different people came up, I mean, not everyone who performed tonight is like somebody who's my close friend, but there's kind of like those threads through. Like I was thinking about the first time I met Katz, which I think was like Lady Fest South in 2000. It was an election year, right?
It was at that restaurant.
Yeah, it was at that restaurant, and I emceed for like 5 days straight for 12 hours. I remember at the end of it, there were those people who had that animal concept band. You know, they're like, we are the people of the forest, we are the people of the mountain. But they really looked like the people of the suburbs. And I remember this woman had this big stuffed orangutan on the stage with her, and she
like
was
you do.
Right, like you do, exactly. And it was one of, you know those people who adopt primates, and then they find out that primates are fucking wild animals and you can't adopt them. And so she had her son, which was orangutan, that at like 15 she had to give him up because he like tried to tear her face off. You know what's hilarious?
Like you do.
Is like you do. And you know what's hilarious is right now I was just in my head doing the, oh wait, did that orangutan, did he use male pronouns? That's what I was doing in my head. But, so anyway, so she adopted the male, she had the orangutan, and then, so she had the big stuffed orangutan on the stage. Do you remember this, Katz?
Yeah, it was like 4 women, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. And that teenage boy who then swung from the rafters.
I don't understand how I remember the band, but not the teenage boy. I was enthralled with it.
Yeah, it was called, I think it was called Animal Something. I don't know. And, because I knew it was going to be a problem because I asked how they wanted to be introduced, and she goes, can we go someplace quieter? And I'm like, oh, God. She's like, we're an animal concept band, and that is actually my son. But it was a stuffed orangutan. And I was like, I'm not going to call. I'm going to take a stand. It's 2004. It's time to take a stand. I'm not calling a stuffed orangutan your son. Anyway, so it was really, I enjoyed that very much. But, and I was just thinking, Sam, like I met it at Lady Fest Philly, where like people were protesting. People were protesting at Lady Fest Philly, like, Lady Fest, it's so the tool of a man. Yeah. Anyway, and okay, so I feel like before I get started, I should tell my teenage angst story, which I don't have because I didn't know I was gay when I was a teenager, even though it's super obvious because I look exactly the same. Even the same sweatshirt. I was excited about the whole same t-shirt thing because it's not actually this sweatshirt. This is my formal sweatshirt. But you know that blue sweatshirt that I wear all the time with the frayed cuffs? There's a picture of me wearing it in 2001. Yeah. So I've worn that sweatshirt almost a decade. Anyway, so I had I was going to Mid-America Bible College, and which was really, it was a good plan. And I had a fiance. He was studying to be a music minister, and you know, we weren't actually having sex because you don't do that if you're like a Jesus person. And but he went down on me, which somehow was not sex, and I didn't actually know where my clit was, but he showed me where my clit was, and then we were like 2 weeks away from getting married, and I broke up with him because I was like, oh, I can do this myself. So if you need any Kelly and Jay napkins, I still have some, actually, because the wedding was all planned and everything. I know, right? Okay, this is called Begging for Information. If there's anything more boring and narcissistic, perhaps, than posting to Facebook about your dreams, it's doing a reading and telling stories about what your therapist said to you in therapy. When I lived in Philadelphia, I had a roommate once who, because I used the living room as a bedroom, we all are familiar with that, and had no door, would come home from therapy and stand at the door, I had no door, remember, and recount what happened, line by line. Sometimes it took more than 50 minutes with all the commentary, and I thought, what the hell, you should just pay me the $50. Eventually, because she was prone to such crazy verbal excesses, I would come home, hear her coming downstairs, undoubtedly to tell me a story of what happened in therapy, and I would jump in bed and start actually fake snoring. I was an adult at this point. I even built a wood door out of a piece of plywood, and by built a wood door, I actually just leaned a piece of plywood against the door jamb. I eventually asked her to move out. She left a mess, and including at least one paper stuck to the wall with some jam. And how I figured out it was stuck to the wall with jam is, I was like, oh, there's a piece of paper there. And then I started to pull it off, and I was like, what are those little black things? And it was seeds. It was blackberry jam, apparently. But a connect here, besides what does clinical depression look like, it looks like a paper stuck to the wall with jam. I'm getting to it, is not only the therapy part, but the connection part between the too much information and the too little. Jen, that's her real name, and I am using her real name because I had to clean jam off the wall. She had a problem with oversharing, and my therapist frequently accuses me of undersharing. All right, so I don't know if I have a therapist voice. So this is the therapist. Wait, what? Wait, you were in foster care? And then I answered, long story. You can never tell your therapist it's a long story. They never take that for an answer. Or my therapist said, wait, what? You had a stepdad named Colonel? I thought everyone had a stepdad named Colonel. Wait, now what happened with the Brussels sprouts? Oh, I assure my therapist, you really don't want to hear the Brussels sprouts story. It might upset you.
But we do.
Yeah, but no, you don't want to hear the therapist. Therapists almost never take the I can't tell you that it might upset you as an answer. But my inability to share with my therapist doesn't even begin to touch the awe-inspiring ability of my family's inability to share information. Now, partly this is lack of skills. Some people are all talk and no action. My family is all action, no talk. Big hearts, extremely limited resources. Now, if you want someone to build you a barn, or teach you to fight, or take you up the road to get a 6-pack, or a 12-pack, or a keg, these are the folks, my family. But you don't want to ask them for anything that requires them to use words to convey feelings. It's like watching someone try to learn to ballroom dance without having first removed their scuba diving gear. Awkward, no connections. They don't even have the vocabulary. For example, my grandma was talking about that her sister had been sick for a while, and she was thinking really hard, and she said, you know, she had that disease where you feel so very all alone. And I was like, depression, Grandma? She's like, oh yes, that's it. This is why, if you ask a question in my family, you are often left with less information rather than more. Just to give you an example, my mom had a tubal ligation 19 months before I was born. Now, in 1968, I did some research into this. My brother let it slip accidentally. He thought that I knew. He just assumed that that was something my mom had told me. And I did some research, and there was a CDC study, 10-year study, between 1968, when I was born, and 1978. 1 in 155 tubal ligations were unsuccessful, meaning they resulted in at least one birth. And in some cases, as many as 10 births after the tubal ligation. Yeah, apparently they were just clamping them. They weren't actually severing the fallopian tubes at that point. All right, so I was thinking, how did my mom never mention this? Did she forget? No, it wasn't that she forgot. But I decided that I was going to bring it up to her. And my sister was running a marathon around Disney World. How many people have spectated a marathon? No, New York is probably a little bit different. But like the Disney World Marathon, like people run by, and if you don't clap, they're like, a little help, please, a little support. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't tell you to fucking run a marathon. And then when people are like, oh, I'm doing it for my health, I'm like, no, you run 1.5 miles for your health. You run 26.2 miles because your mother didn't love you anymore. But anyway, that's just my little rant. But are you guys booing, like, oh, we love marathoners. Yeah. I got an applause break on hating on marathoners. Okay. So anyway, so I decided I was going to bring this up to my mom, right? And so we were marathoning, we were spectating for my sister's stupid fucking marathon, and we were outside of the kind of rural area around Disney World at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Well, obviously 7 a.m. morning. And so I just mentioned it kind of offhandedly to my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, Raj told me about, that whole thing with the tubal ligation, and I got like tubal leg, and then all of a sudden my mom puts on the brakes, screeches across 3 lanes of traffic, and does an actual donut in the gravel. And then she goes, did you see that car? That car almost hit us. There was not a car around for miles. So I just said, oh, I think you probably don't want to talk about this.
Yes. Yes.
And I think, why did my mom not tell me that I was born after she had a tubal ligation? Because she thought it would, crush my self-esteem, right? I'm sure that's why she didn't tell me. But it doesn't crush my self-esteem to know I was the one in 155 that, got through a banded fallopian tubes, right? There's nothing more fierce than that. It's like being born with a little, I'm here, I'm queer. Seriously, you're going to have to get used to it sign. So, as I've gotten older and become ensconced in this let's share queer community, had lots of good therapy, and spent a lot of time in Al-Anon, I've learned that not talking about things is unhealthy, that we are only as sick as our secrets, and that my family makes very good comedy material. In fact, actually, you should try this even if you don't perform stand-up comedy. Take some 3x5 cards to the next family reunion, and just when people say things, get your pen out and write it down. And don't try and hide it, because the whole point is that you're making them uncomfortable. And really, people behave so much better if they think you're writing stand-up comedy from their direct quote. That's just my little survival tip. Straight people can use it too. This means that the stuff we don't even talk about in whispers, I stay on stage with a mic in hand. Since my cousin Hans rarely shows up I really do have a cousin Hans, rarely shows up at Queers for Economic Justice Space, or 116, or Atlanta Pride, or Queer Health Day at Colorado State University, this works out okay unless I interact with my family. Then I'm always saying things like, what? Oh, I'm sorry, right, we don't talk about that. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, we don't talk about that. Or, wait, I'm sorry, I forgot, we don't talk about that. But something happened just last week to shift our family's emotional undersharingness on its very planetary axis. I recently returned to my mom's house to help her after knee replacement surgery. With the addition of strong pain-killing opiates and my mother's utter exhaustion came honesty, or to be more precise, over-honesty. I was sitting by my mom's chair at the hospital when she began to rail on about the overprotection of Americans' young people against seatbelts. My dad, like everyone else's in Wisconsin in 1970s, it was like when the seatbelts first started making noises if you didn't wear them. And so my dad actually took a machete and severed the seatbelts so that wouldn't happen. The seatbelts were bad. She railed on against bike helmets and against anti-smoking laws. And then she started in and she's like, oh, and this bullshit about not drinking when you're pregnant. Oh my God. When I got pregnant with you, I was so anxious. I was pregnant after a tubal ligation, for Christ's sake. I was so anxious, in order to get to sleep, I had to drink almost a full bottle of wine every night. I immediately texted this info to a friend who shot back, well, that probably explains your genius level IQ and inability to do even single-digit math in your head. I got up to build whatever metaphorical barn I could for my mom. Yeah, I said, patting her hand awkwardly. We don't really talk about that. Thanks. I'm Kelli Dunham.